Well, howdy once again, everybody. Again, my apologies for being so distant for a while. Balancing work, school life, and gaming is not always that easy for me, and I'm a terrible task scheduler, but I'll try and fix that. I've been exceedingly nostalgic for Battlefield 2 as of late, especially after seeing a Battlefield 5 speculation thread on AnandTech recently. In that thread, I discussed quite a bit how BF3 and 4 got so many things wrong compared to BF2, though it did get some things right. So last week I felt that I really needed to get my fix on the classic game. For those of you who do not know, BF2's official servers were closed down by EA in 2014. However, you can still play the game online after going through a few hoops thanks to some very dedicated Battlefield 2 fans. It's actually quite an easy process and certainly worth it for you BF2 veterans who are itching to perhaps get back into such a landmark and legendary PC game. All in all, it only takes a few words for me to describe my recent experience in playing Battlefield 2. Hilarious, fun, crazy, teamwork, fast, addictive, action-packed. And did I mention fun? The combination of emotions and feelings I have for Battlefield 2 isn't just the result of nostalgia glasses, and I was legitimately pondering this before I fired it up last week. After playing the past few days, I can truly say that BF2 is as fun as it was 10 years ago. Funny enough, I truly mean that. I literally started playing Battlefield 2 10 years ago in the spring of 2006. It's where I started with the series, and that goes for many of us dedicated Battlefield fans. We started with BF2. When I first started playing BF2, I did not have a desktop PC, so my experience was limited to a laptop at that point in time. While it was underpowered from getting the most out of BF2, I could still play at medium settings, 100% draw distance, at 1024 by 768 resolution. Starting with the BF2 demo, I was instantly hooked, and eventually I had to go out and buy the actual game because it was just too awesome. When I eventually built my first desktop computer just over a year later, it made the game all that much better, being able to play at 60 FPS maxed out with 8 times anti-aliasing. Now, there were some prevailing issues with BF2 in those first few years, but luckily over the years that it was released, it steadily got patched to play and run better. It was notorious for crashes, and being an insane system memory hog, it would gladly consume over a gigabyte of system memory if you had it available. Actually, I should say it still does consume over a gigabyte of system memory if you have it available. In 2009, DICE and EA released the final update, which included one final new map, all the expansion packs that had released previously, and native widescreen support. With that, Battlefield 2 finally and properly entered the widescreen era. But also one could say that at 4 years old, it was the game's final hurrah in a market flooded with newer multiplayer shooters. DICE had already moved on to the HD era of gaming with Battlefield Bad Company on the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3. Thankfully, with a dedicated fanbase of players and a huge modding community, Battlefield 2 trucked on for 5 more years before EA shut down the servers in mid-2014. It's really impressive to realize that Battlefield 2 stuck around for so long after the releases of Bad Company 2 in 2010, Battlefield 3 in 2011, and Battlefield 4 in 2013. Playing Battlefield 2 the past week, especially after playing Battlefield 4 so recently for the first time, which was just last fall, and in conjunction with my experience with BF3 and Bad Company 2, it does not really surprise me how I absolutely still relish the Battlefield 2 experience over those newer titles. I'm willing to go out on a limb and confidently say that BF2 is still the definitive Battlefield experience, and that more recent games have failed to capture its level of fun, teamwork, and enthralling multiplayer. Ultimately, where I think things have gone wrong is this obsession with EA and DICE chasing the Call of Duty dream. Battlefield to me was never about being bigger and badder than Call of Duty. It naturally was just because of the nature of the type of game Battlefield was designed to be. BF2 pioneered class-based multiplayer and experience as a way to unlock new equipment, well before Call of Duty 4 made it popular. However, one could fully enjoy the game even without unlocks. The rewarding of XP for anything and everything in recent Battlefield games seems quite damning to the series, and I think it just represents an addiction mechanic to keep people playing. I'm not saying BF3 and BF4 are not fun, they really are. I really do enjoy them. But they are overly reliant on rewarding the player in a Pavlovian sense. The games have become too focused on giving rewards to players instead of demanding higher achievements and teamwork. In Battlefield 2, you got score points for completing very specific actions. 2 points were only rewarded for kills. 1 point was rewarded for all other actions like healing or supplying a teammate, neutralizing a flag, taking a flag, for reviving a teammate, and for assisting in a kill if you provided at least 50% of the damage. If you were killed midway through neutralizing a capture flag, you got nothing. Even still, points were mostly a way of measuring who did better. And while the score did contribute to ranking up and the unlocks, the distance and time between was so long, it became sort of an afterthought for the player, at least it did for me. Because of the delicate nature of score and how real actions were required to increase one's score, team play was of the utmost importance. A team that couldn't work together was simply doomed. Enter the Battlefield 2 squad system. The squad system in Battlefield 2 was incredibly robust, but incredibly delicate, requiring a cohesive squad unit that focused on teamwork and communication. A stupid independent action by a squad member could ruin the success of a squad's ability to capture a control flag. Instead of being limited to 4 players as in BF3 and BF4, the squad system in BF2 was composed of up to 6. The squad leader was the only member whom the other squad members could spawn onto, as well as he could also directly communicate with the team's commander for requesting artillery strikes, as well as vehicle and supply drops. Personally, I think the ability to spawn onto any squad member in BF3 and BF4 ruins the required squad cohesion, as well as the command and control structure that was required for successful gameplay, which itself is personally more rewarding in BF2 form. You can still play independently in BF2 as in the other Battlefield games, but the most successful teams have teamwork-oriented squads. Squad members had to maintain the task of keeping their leader alive to maintain him as a spawn point, be it for flag captures or deep interdiction missions into enemy territory, such as to steal vehicles or destroy enemy equipment like artillery and UAV control centers. When it comes to gunplay, I can wholeheartedly agree that BF2's gunplay mechanics are very difficult to get used to when your recent experience is with the newer Battlefield games that offer better tactility and feedback. The lack of tracers in so many weapons in BF2 does make it more difficult in landing shot placement. However, the lack of feedback in BF2 does keep the pace fast and frenetic. Squad automatic weapons like the RPK and the M249 are woefully inaccurate after the first few shots, but this is pretty realistic, requiring the player to control his fire and pace himself, even at close range. Because of issues like this, the individual weapons in each class maintain a specific use, just as well as those in the newer Battlefields. The inability to upgrade weapons themselves keeps their use specific, which ties into player classes much better. The player classes actually mean something in BF2. The spread of 7 classes keeps player jobs very specific, compared to the merging classes you see with the 4-class system in Battlefield 2142 and onwards. The ability to change weapons and attachments in each class is nice, but that in itself is tied to the reward system probably way too much. Now that said, customization with individual weapons I think is actually a great thing for mission adaptability. The same weapon can be made more useful for given situations, but at the cost in other aspects. Perhaps in Battlefield 5, classes should be better focused when it comes to available weapon types. The support and sniper class really has no business wielding shotguns, much like a mechanic has no business using a designated marksman rifle. Now I feel I must address how strong some vehicles are in BF3 and BF4, in particular the inability to damage aircraft and light vehicles with small arms. Scout helicopters are just about invincible unless you manage to score it with an RPG round, of which all the missiles and cannons are way too slow in velocity compared to real-life counterparts, and I mean immensely slow. In Battlefield 2, cannons on APCs and IFVs at least had a realistic velocity, and hits could be scored, forcing a helo to retreat. AAA in BF2 was certainly more powerful than that of BF3 and BF4, but not so powerful it ruined the piloting experience. It's also refreshing in BF2 to have dumb bombs that don't require any kind of lock-on or laser designation. The inability to lock on in BF3 and BF4 thanks to ECM, flares, etc. can make things incredibly frustrating. I was incredibly disappointed to see rockets taken away for fixed-wing aircraft in BF4, but the addition of 30mm cannon as an upgrade, though unrealistic, sort of makes up for it, sort of. I do like how aircraft in Battlefield 2 have to go back to the airfield to rearm, as it does provide an adequate amount of downtime for opposing players to capture a flag or do whatever else. This further stresses teamwork and the combined arms aspect of Battlefield 2 that really doesn't get seen as often in BF3 and BF4. The next Battlefield game could be a true sequel to Battlefield 4. I'm hoping for the sequel to 2142. But regardless of what direction and time DICE goes with, I think they need to take an honest look at what made the previous Battlefield games, in particular BF2 and 2142, so great and rewarding for its players. It is hard to argue with the success of Battlefields 3 and 4, but I think DICE has lost some of its heart and soul in chasing that Call of Duty dream. I do believe that Battlefield really is poised to overtake Call of Duty as the shooter of choice. However, I am worried that the directions it's going may take the series down the same kind of path Call of Duty went by alienating old fans and being stuck with trying to satisfy XP-obsessed gamers, stuffing their mouths with Doritos and drowning themselves in Mountain Dew. The lack of mods is a shame too, and that was and still is a huge part of the Battlefield 2 community. The likes of Project Reality and Forgotten Hope 2 are like almost professional quality expansion packs to a very great original game. But DICE, please play some of your old games and even jump into some Battlefield 2 matches while you're at it. I will continue to enjoy the technical innovation of newer Battlefield titles, but I would like to see the series harken back to its roots. The tacked-on single player is unnecessary, and the targeted bro gamer demographic is unfortunately putting Battlefield on the same path as Call of Duty. As said before, I do enjoy Battlefield 3 and Battlefield 4, I really do, but going back to Battlefield 2 is like seeing an old friend that you just can't help but feel incredibly guilty for not visiting in a very long time. My name is Blitz, and I hope to see you out on the battlefield.